Got it? Pure pearls. No overstructuring, no categories, just one after the other. Each one its own fully loaded cinematic bite. Cream on the biscuit moments. Curry thick, cheddar sharp. Shit you could drop straight into blasphemy and it instantly elevates the scene. I'll keep them flowing like a chain of jewels. Each one 100 plus words, self-contained, visual first, vibed out. Here's a first drop of 5 pearls so you can taste the style. Pearl 1, the cigarette flame Lumiere lights a cigarette, but the spark flares brighter than it should. The flame bending outward like it's sucking the oxygen from the entire room. For a split second, the walls warp and the shadows on faces ripple as though flame is the center of gravity. Nobody comments. The distortion fades as quickly as it came, and he exhales smoke like a priest blessing the air. It's subtle enough that the characters can ignore it, but the audience feels the world itself flinch at his breath, reality acknowledging him as something it cannot quite contain. Pearl 2, the mercy contract. Shatter. When Lumiere administers a mercy contract, the stick exhales and dies, but instead of a clean fade, the tiles under the bed fracture like glass from an unseen pressure. The cracks spiderweb outward in total silence, not breaking the floor, but etching a scar into reality itself. The camera drifts down through the fissures, showing iridescent light bleeding like lava beneath the surface. When it cuts back, the cracks are gone, the room ordinary again. The message is unspoken. Every death he touches is recorded by the world itself, archived in invisible fractures nobody else can see. Pearl 3, the drone kill ripple. A drone strike through a suburban window. The target's head bursts, blood speckling the walls. But as the body collapses, the wallpaper itself ripples outward like a pond disturbed by a stone. The ripple moves slow, impossibly slow, like time itself reacting in horror. Family photos on the wall distort, smiles elongating, eyes sinking into black sockets, frames twisting. Then in an instant, everything snaps back to normal. Just a body on a carpet, TV still playing in the background. Only the audience feels the terror of the ripple. For everyone else, it's just another hit. Pearl 4. The iridescent cat paws Cranford sees the iridescent cat cleaning its paw 5 meters away. The sound drops out of the world. No cicadas, no wind, just silence. The cat freezes mid-lick, its tongue a shard of aurora glass, eyes reflecting galaxies. Then, impossibly, the camera stutters. One frame repeats 3 times, as though reality itself glitched when it noticed him. The cat slowly withdraws its paw, stares directly into the lens, then pounces away. Sound roaring back in like a rush of water. Cranford doesn't move, breath held, as though the encounter was less seen than it was survived. Pearl 5, the pixie egg pulse. When Lumiere's pixie lays its first egg, the room doesn't fill with light. Instead, every surface throbs. Wallpaper patterns pulse like veins. Glasses on a shelf tremble with a low hum, and every heartbeat in the room sinks for 3 long seconds. The crew all clutching their chests, unsure why. The egg itself glows faintly, but the world's response is louder than the egg's existence. When the hum fades, everyone gasps, realizing they were all holding their breath in unison. The pixie tilts its head, almost playful, as if it knows it just reminded the room of its mortality. That's 5. All pearls. No fat. Do you want me to just keep stacking these endlessly until we hit 100, like 10 to 20 per drop? Or do you want to stop and check each batch before I keep rolling? Perfect. Let's keep stringing pearls. No categories, no filler, just raw cinematic diamonds you can drop anywhere in Blasphemy. Here's 13 more, each its own 100-word sauce bomb. Pearl 6, the corridor stretch. A narrow hallway extends longer the more Lumiere walks it. His boots click steady, but the end recedes like a mirage. Fluorescent bulbs flicker out behind him, one by one so he can't turn back. The camera stays tight on his face. Calm, as though this isn't new. Finally, a door appears. He touches the handle and suddenly the hallway snaps to normal length, like nothing happened. Someone waits inside the room, unfazed. The audience is left unsure if they hallucinated it or if time simply stretched to make space for him. Pearl 7, the motel, TV static. A motel TV buzzes in the background of a scene. Nobody's watching, but the static shifts in faint silhouettes. Iridescent cats, faces of the dead, flickers of contracts unspoken. Every time a character raises their voice, the static sharpens, almost becoming clear. Then it fuzzes back out. Late in the conversation, someone absent-mindedly mutes the TV, and silence hits the room like a gunshot. For the first time, the characters feel the weight of what the audience already knows. The noise was alive, listening. Pearl 8, the knife reflection. Cranford sharpens a knife under a flickering bulb. In the blade's reflection, the room doesn't match reality. Wendy's chair is empty, though she's sitting there, and Lumiere's cigarette burns backwards, smoke sucking into the ember. The longer he sharpens, the more out of sync the reflection gets, until the blade shows nobody at all. He blinks, drops the knife, and the reflection resets instantly. No one else notices. Later, when blood hits the blade, the reflection shows the victim still alive, gasping for help. Pearl 9. The bus windows stare on a city bus. Lumiere watches his reflection in the glass. For a second, it blinks, out of sync. Then again, he presses his forehead to the window. The reflection smirks at him, cigarette already lit, though he hasn't touched his lighter. The street outside flickers like a scratched VHS tape. He pulls back, lights up, exhales. The reflection exhales with him this time, perfectly in rhythm. Everyone else on the bus is normal, scrolling their phones, oblivious. Pearl 10, the blood pool map. Blood spills from a dying man's mouth onto a cracked concrete floor. The pool spreads unnaturally fast, forming shapes like rivers and coastlines. Lumiere notices, crouches, and realizes it's a map, but of a place that doesn't exist. When he blinks, the blood resumes being random, meaningless chaos. The man dies mid-gasp. Only Lumiere saw the cartography, and he doesn't explain it. The camera lingers long enough for the audience to memorize the shape, knowing it'll matter later. Pearl 11. The pulse in the floorboards. During a quiet argument in Lumiere's apartment, the floor thuds, a heartbeat in the wood. Every board swells for a moment, as if alive. Nobody acknowledges it, but the argument pauses, voices faltering in perfect unison. When they continue, the pulse returns, louder this time. The camera pushes low, showing dust hopping on the boards like ripples of bass. Finally, silence. They finish the argument pretending nothing happened, but the floor remembers, creaking louder every time someone crosses it afterward. Pearl 12, the black bile spill. Lumiere vomits thick black bile into a sink. It crawls upward instead of down, coating the porcelain, clinging like tar. Tiny feathers float in it, drifting against gravity. For a second, an eyeball rolls to the surface, blinks once, and dissolves back into sludge. He rinses it away with water, but the camera lingers. A faint smear remains, glowing faintly under the light. Later, another character sees the same smear, runs their finger over it, and it stains their skin like ink. Pearl 13, the mercy clock stop. During a mercy contract, the ticking wall clock halts at the exact moment the target exhales their last breath. Cigarette smoke hangs frozen midair, suspended in the room. Lumiere blinks, looks around, and for 10 seconds the world is locked. Then, with a sharp click, the clock resumes. The smoke drifts again, as if nothing happened. The dead man's eyes remain open, staring directly at Lumiere. He closes them gently. Only he understands the clock bowed to the contract. Pearl 14, the elevator void. Lumiere steps into a building elevator. The doors close, and instead of floors passing, it's pure black void outside the glass. His reflection stands beside him, but doesn't move when he does. The lift dings open. Suddenly, everything is normal. Lobby, chatter, business as usual. The reflection lingers for half a beat longer before catching up, like reality needed time to reset. Pearl 15. The busted streetlight choir. 3 streetlights flicker as the crew walks under them. Each flicker hums in different pitches, harmonizing like a broken choir. The characters barely notice, talking over it. But when Lumiere pauses to light a cigarette, the streetlights sink into a perfect chord. Clear, haunting, beautiful. The moment he exhales, the bulbs burst simultaneously, glass raining down. The crew laughs it off nervously. Lumiere just keeps walking, cigarette glowing steady, as if the world sang just for him. Pearl 16, the ritual smoke face. Jera burns sage during a midnight ritual. The smoke curls unnaturally, coalescing into a distorted face above the flame. Its mouth moves silently, lips shaping words nobody hears. The face lingers just long enough to unsettle, then collapses back into ordinary smoke. Jara pretends she didn't notice, chanting louder, but her hands tremble as she grips the shard in the bowl. The audience catches it. The others do not. The pixie watches, wings twitching like it heard every word. Pearl 17. The window collapse. Kimmy fires a shot across a kitchen table. The bullet shatters a window behind his target. As glass rains down, the outside world collapses, buildings folding inward like paper until only darkness yawns beyond the window. Then, mid-fall, time rewinds the shards back into place. The target's corpse is real, bleeding out, but the window is whole again, as if nothing happened. Kimmy doesn't even notice the anomaly, too focused on wiping his gun. The audience alone is left to doubt what broke: the glass or the world. Pearl 18. The iridescent rain. A drizzle falls over the city, but under the streetlights, every droplet shimmers aurora colors, refracting impossible hues. Characters walk through it casually, getting soaked, oblivious. Only one character, maybe Marcus, pauses, tilts his head, and watches as the rainbows slide down his arm. He looks around. Nobody else notices. For a moment, he's the only one in the scene who feels the beauty and horror of it. He wipes his arm, but the colors cling under his skin, pulsing faintly for hours after. That's 13 more pearls. Total now, 18. Want me to keep slamming out pearls in sets of 20 until we hit your full 100? Or would you rather me slow drip them in smaller, chewable bursts? Perfect. I'll cook you up 20 fresh pearls, but this round I'll lace them character specific so each one drips with their vibe. Think of it like giving each crew member their own little cinematic jewel. Pearl 19. Neon Crosshair. Kimmy lines up a drone strike from his Hungry Jack's booth. Grease stains on the wrapper blur into his phone screen, the reflection of the target's GPS blinking red. When the strike hits, his screen glitches with neon anime overlays. The Didi Montclair interface bleeding into reality. His fries go cold, but his grin doesn't fade. Pearl 20. The flame red halo. As Kimmy walks through a club, the strobe catches his hair so it looks aflame, a living halo of red. For a second, the crowd parts unconsciously around him, not because they see it, but because they feel it. Wendy Pearl's Pearl 21. Botany Gospel. Wendy tends her plants under UV lights, chanting softly. The camera pushes close to a leaf, and the veins pulse faintly like neon circuitry. She whispers to the crop as if it's listening, and for a moment, the vines twitch as though answering back. Pearl 22. Spliff Incantation. When Wendy lights a massive joint, the smoke curls into fractal patterns that mimic the iridescent cats. The crew laughs, but Lumiere notices. The geometry is exact, too precise to be random. Cuthbert Pearls. Pearl 23. Mirror Flex Cuthbert adjusts his long blonde hair in a cracked mirror. For one frame, his reflection is wearing a black mask, Secret Service style, and holding a pistol. He blinks, and it's gone. His smirk stays, like he expected it. Pearl 24. Rust Bucket Ballet. Driving his rusted Pulsar, Cuthbert takes a sharp corner. The shitty car drifts perfectly, dust cloud billowing like a dance. He laughs, cigarette bouncing between his lips, as if chaos itself respects his control. Hack Cranford Pearl's Pearl 25. The boot stomp. Cranford slams his combat boot on a table mid-argument. The lights flicker, dust shakes loose, and for an instant his shadow stretches massive on the wall, looming like a warlord. Pearl 26. Sawed-off Lullaby. He loads his shotgun while humming a nursery rhyme. Each pump echoes like a heartbeat, mismatched and unsettling, the hum cracking into laughter. Davo Pearl's Pearl 27. Old Man's Deaf Silence. When Davo takes out his hearing aids at night, the soundtrack drops to total silence. Eerie, suffocating. But faint vibrations still rumble through the floor, as though the world itself keeps whispering at him. Pearl 28 Chemistry Sermon. In his RV lab, Davo stirs chemicals like a priest at an altar. The fumes rise, glowing faintly aurora. He doesn't notice, but Cranford stares, convinced they're alive. Winston Pearl's Pearl 29. The suit's shadow. Winston walks into a club in his tailored black suit. His shadow is sharper than his body, cutting across the wall like a blade. People glance but look away quickly, unnerved. Pearl 30. Desert Eagle Eclipse. He unholsters the huge pistol, and the camera frames it against a streetlight. For a split second, the barrel blocks out the glow, casting a solar eclipse aura around his hand. Malachi Pearls. Pearl 31. Mansion Abyss, Malachi stands in his gray field mansion. The vast windows show no scenery, just a rolling black void. When he moves, faint outlines of chained figures flicker in the dark outside, reaching toward the glass. Pearl 32, Poison Toast. He pours wine for a guest. The liquid looks normal until the camera cuts close, revealing faint black filaments swirling inside. He smiles warmly as they drink, the poison masked by charm. Hashed Ensemble Pearls, Pearl 33, ashes on the pool table. The crew sits around a pool table littered with cigarette ash, empty bags, and guns. The balls roll on their own, clicking into a perfect triangle formation. Nobody acknowledges it. Pearl 34, Flicker Argument. During a heated crew fight, the room lights flicker violently. With each strobe, different people are standing, yelling, or silent. Reality rearranging like a stuttered slideshow. Pearl 35, Rooftop Pact. They gather on a rooftop, city spread below. Each lights a cigarette at the same time. Their smoke plumes rise, merge into one cloud, and drift upward. A pact sealed without words. Pearl 36, Elevator Standoff. Two characters argue in a stalled elevator. Sweat drips, tempers flare. Behind them, the floor counter flickers random numbers. 322, 666, 13, before stabilizing. Neither notices, but the camera lingers. That's 20 more pearls. Now 36 total. Do you want me to keep stacking pearls character by character like this, so everyone in the cast gets their moments? Or scatter them purely by raw vibe, without... Alright, cunt. Here's 14 fresh pearls. Straight vibe, no labels. Just the cream, each one its own little scene seed. Pearl 37. A ceiling fan spins lazily above the crew. Each blade reflects a different version of the room. One with no one there, one with everyone dead, one with them all laughing. The fan slows and the reflections blur into one indistinguishable smear before vanishing. Pearl 38. A beer bottle rolls off a table and hits the floor. Instead of shattering, it keeps rolling in a perfect circle, clinking softly, tracing a glowing ring on the concrete like chalk. After a minute, it finally collapses with a sharp crack. Pearl 39, Davo adjusts his glasses, and for a moment, the lenses don't reflect the room he's in, but a burning desert landscape. He blinks, rubs his eyes, and the reflection is gone. He mutters to himself and keeps working. Pearl 40 Lumiere exhales smoke rings, but they don't fade. They hover, hardening into glassy halos that drift toward the ceiling. One of them pops with a faint scream, too quiet for anyone else to hear. Pearl 41. A jukebox in a dingy bar starts playing by itself. The song is warped, slowed, reversed, a dirge of something familiar. Everyone in the room stops mid-conversation, listening, goosebumps rising. The record scratches, and the bar resumes like nothing happened. Pearl 42. Cranford spits blood onto the dirt. Instead of soaking in, it spreads across the ground in branching, root-like patterns, glowing faintly red. He wipes his mouth and stomps over it until it disappears, but the glow lingers beneath the soil. Pearl 43, Kimmy's lighter won't spark. He flicks it again and again until suddenly a burst of flame leaps out, too large, engulfing his hand. When it fades, his skin is untouched, but the wall behind him is scorched black in the outline of wings. Pearl 44, Wendy leans over her plants, whispering. They lean back toward her, leaves trembling as if straining to listen. The moment someone else enters the room, the plants fall still, perfectly normal. Pearl 45, a storm rolls over the city. Lightning flashes, illuminating a dozen shadowy figures on the horizon. When the thunder hits, they're gone. The crew doesn't mention it, but their silence is heavy. Pearl 46. Cuthbert tilts his sunglasses down, and instead of showing the street, the lenses reflect a starfield, infinite galaxies swirling. He slides them back up, grin sharp, like he's hiding entire universes behind his eyes. Pearl 47. A dead man's phone rings on the floor. Nobody moves to answer. The ringtone warps into a faint chant of Lumiere's name before cutting off. The screen stays black, battery long drained. Pearl 48. Marcus clenches his fists, and every bulb in the room pops in sequence. Shards rain down, but none of them touch him. The glass bounces inches from his skin as if repelled. He looks up, expression unreadable. Pearl 49, Winston flicks open his cigar case. For one frame, the cigars inside writhe like snakes. He selects one calmly, bites the end, and lights up. Smoke drifts upward, curling into nooses before dissolving. Pearl 50. Malachi speaks softly at his table, but his words reverberate in the room like a choir. Layers of voices, male and female, young and ancient, repeating after him. His guest hears only his calm tone, but the audience feels the weight of every echo. That's us sitting at 50 pearls total now. You want me to keep pushing straight through to the full 100 in this raw vibe style? Or should I keep dropping them in sets of 14 to 20 until we stack the vault to the brim? Got it? Let's make this next batch character-driven pearls. Each one rooted in a specific crew member's presence, quirks, or mythic weight. So it's not just vibe, but their vibe. Here's 20 more pearls, all anchored in character. Pearl 51. Kimmy leans back in his chair, rolling a pistol between his palms like it's a fidget toy. The metal clicks against his rings, and for a moment the sound is amplified, echoing like a roulette wheel. He grins, eyes flashing. For him, every choice is a gamble he's already won. Pearl 52, Wendy trims a plant in silence. As she cuts a leaf, a drop of sap hits the soil and blooms instantly into a tiny aurora shimmer, like oil on water. She hides it under more dirt, but her eyes betray a mix of awe and fear. Pearl 53. Cuthbert kicks back in a nightclub booth, drink in hand. In the mirror behind him, he's not sitting, he's standing, gun drawn, already a second ahead of reality. He smirks at his reflection before taking a sip, as if daring it to act first. Pearl 54, Cranford spits into the fire during a bush cook-up. The flames roar higher, shifting green for a moment, then settle back. He doesn't flinch, just mutters, "Thought so," while Davo eyes him warily, refusing to ask what he meant. Pearl 55. Davo works alone in his shed. As he measures powder on a scale, the numbers tick upward on their own, climbing past what's on the plate. He shakes his head, scribbles the false result down anyway, and keeps mixing. Too old to be surprised. Pearl 56. Winston walks through a crowded room. Conversations dip in volume without anyone realizing, like a predator's shadow brushing a school of fish. His smile is polite, but people's throats dry when he passes, as if they've inhaled dust. Pearl 57. Malachi plays piano in his mansion, each note resonating like a bell in a cathedral. The camera drifts over the keys. His hands are normal, but their shadows stretch like claws, hitting notes he isn't playing. The melody grows fuller, impossible. Pearl 58, Marcus sits in silence while the crew bickers. His eyes track each of them, calculating. A fly lands on his arm. He flicks it off without breaking his stare. The argument peters out naturally, like they all subconsciously registered his judgment. Pearl 59. Jera smokes by the riverbank. The smoke from her rollie drifts upward, shaping into a rainbow serpent for a few seconds. She grins knowingly, whispering something in her language under her breath. The others see only haze. Pearl 60, Bake paces with his tube bong clutched tight. He exhales a plume so thick it forms a tunnel, and for a heartbeat, he's walking through it like a doorway. When it clears, he laughs nervously, pretending it was nothing. Pearl 61. Abe loads a magazine with calm precision. Each bullet clicks like a drumbeat, steady, ritualistic. By the last round, the rhythm has lulled the room into silence, everyone watching her hands without meaning to. Pearl 62. Otto sits cross-legged on the tower floor, sketching in crayon. The camera tilts to show the drawing, a perfect image of the crew's current pose, down to Lumiere's exact cigarette angle. Otto hums tunelessly, oblivious. Pearl 63. Flora adjusts her hair in a cracked compact mirror. For a split second, her reflection turns and looks directly at Lumiere instead of her. She snaps the mirror shut, smirking like she knows something no one else got it. Let's make this next batch character-driven pearls. Each one rooted in a specific crew member's presence, quirks, or mythic weight. So it's not just vibe, but their vibe. Here's 20 more pearls, all anchored in character. Pearl 51. Kimmy leans back in his chair, rolling a pistol between his palms like it's a fidget toy. The metal clicks against his rings, and for a moment the sound is amplified, echoing like a roulette wheel. He grins, eyes flashing. For him, every choice is a gamble he's already won. Pearl 52, Wendy trims a plant in silence. As she cuts a leaf, a drop of sap hits the soil and blooms instantly into a tiny aurora shimmer, like oil on water. She hides it under more dirt, but her eyes betray a mix of awe and fear. Pearl 53. Cuthbert kicks back in a nightclub booth, drink in hand. In the mirror behind him, he's not sitting, he's standing, gun drawn. All right, cunt. Let's tune this Pearl chain to 77.7, like it's a pirate radio frequency beaming straight out of Lumiere's tower. That means we're dropping 8 more pearls, character-soaked and reality-bending, to land right on the dot. Pearl 70, Wendy lights a spliff, inhales and exhales through her nose. The smoke coils into 2 perfect DNA strands that twist around each other before dispersing. She smiles faintly, whispering, "Everything's connected, see?" The others just cough, oblivious. Pearl 71, Kimmy wipes blood off his hands with a Hungry Jack's napkin. When he crumples it, the grease marks form a perfect crosshair. He pockets it like a keepsake, eyes glittering, already thinking about the next target. Pearl 72. Cuthbert leans against a graffiti wall mid-conversation. The tags behind him rearrange slowly, letters shifting until they spell Banama Orson. He doesn't turn around, just smirks at Lumiere, aware the world is spelling him into existence. Pearl 73 Cranford sharpens his knife, each scrape ringing like a church bell. On the 3rd stroke, sparks fly upward, too many, too bright, showering the room in falling stars. He blows on the blade and mutters, "Amen," before tucking it back into his boot. Pearl 74, Davo drops a pill into a glass of water. Instead of fizzing, it splits into 2 pills, then 4, multiplying until the glass is full of writhing tablets. He chucks the glass down the sink and mutters, "Not today," like this isn't the first time. Pearl 75, Winston stands at a funeral in his immaculate black suit. While everyone else bows their heads, his shadow lifts its chin, grinning wickedly. A mourner swears they see it wink. Winston just lights his cigar, smoke curling like incense. Pearl 76, Malachi's hand hovers over a chessboard. As he moves his queen, every other piece twitches slightly. Like they wanted to move first, but were forced into stillness. He chuckles softly, the sound layered with dozens of ghostly laughs. Pearl 77 Lumiere stands at the edge of a highway at night. Car headlights blur past, streaks of white and red, but in the afterimage, each vehicle's shape twists into an iridescent cat leaping forward. He closes his eyes, exhales smoke, and the vision vanishes with the wind. And there it is, 77 pearls plus a little sliver. That .7 vibe baked into the last one's highway afterimage. Want me to keep stacking until we hit the clean century mark, or leave it suspended here at 77.7 FM Blasphemy Radio? All right, let's crank the dial up to 88.8 FM Blasphemy Radio. 12 more pearls, character stamped cinematic, dripping that sauce. That takes us clean from 77.7 to 88.8. Pearl 78, Bake rips a cone, coughing hard. The smoke doesn't rise, it falls, spreading across the floor like a tide. He laughs nervously, stomping at it with his foot, but the haze clings to his ankles like it doesn't want to let go. Pearl 79 Jera crushes a cigarette butt into the dirt. The ember flares back to life, glowing rainbow. She leans down, whispering to it like a secret, and the ember fades on her command. The others pretend they didn't see. Pearl 80, Marcus tapes his hands before a fight. Each rap echoes like bone cracking in rhythm. By the last loop, his knuckles glow faintly through the fabric. He doesn't notice, but the camera lingers. Pearl 81 Flora slips a necklace over her head. The pendant reflects not her own face, but Lumiere's, smirking back at her. She kisses it anyway, lipstick marking the glass, before tucking it beneath her shirt. Pearl 82, Steve leans out a window, spitting. Instead of falling, the spit shoots upward, vanishing into the night sky. He frowns, mutters, "The fuck was that?" and lights another smoke like it never happened. Pearl 83, Abby sets down her pistol after cleaning it. The gun clicks once on its own, like it chambered around. Everyone goes silent. Abby smirks, whispering, "She's alive, boys." Pearl 84. Cuthbert slams a cue ball into a pool table break. The balls scatter, but every striped ball rolls into a pocket at once, leaving only solids. He blows smoke across the felt like he planned it. Pearl 85. Kimmy spins his phone, bored. When it stops, the screen flashes Dee Dee Montclair's logo, glitching neon green across his eyes. He grins, muttering, "Still watching, huh?" Pearl 86, Davo fumbles a vial. It shatters. But instead of liquid, ash pours out, forming a neat little pile. He kneels, studies it with a chemist's focus, and sweeps it into a jar, labeling it carefully, new. Pearl 87, Wendy stands in her grow room. The humidifier kicks on, mist thickening until it shapes into a cathedral arch over the plants. She stares, whispering a prayer she didn't know she remembered. Pearl 88 Winston draws his Desert Eagle under fluorescent light. For one frame, the barrel reflects a skeletal face, his own, grinning skull wide. He holsters it smoothly, lips curling like he knows. Pearl 88.8 Lumiere stares at the night sky from his balcony. For a second, the stars rearrange into a face, ancient, iridescent, vast. All right, tuning the dial to the apocalyptic end of 99.9 blast. 7 more pearls to bring us clean to 99, and the .9 pearl as the closer, a perfect little glitch at the edge of the signal. Pearl 89. Marcus cracks his neck before a fight. The sound echoes like gunfire, too loud for the small room. A glass nearby shatters on its own, spiderwebbing across the table. He doesn't blink, stepping forward calm as stone. Pearl 90 Jara tosses bones for a reading. They scatter across the floor, but instead of random positions, they align into the shape of an iridescent cat. She exhales sharply, pocketing them without a word. Pearl 91 Cranford smashes a beer can against his head. Foam sprays, but it hangs in the air like glitter, sparkling aurora colors. He wipes his face, snarling, and the glow fades instantly. Pearl 92. Flora touches someone's arm mid-conversation. Their skin flushes, not from embarrassment, but from faint, flower-like patterns blooming across it. She pulls away and the marks vanish. Her smile lingers. Pearl 93. Kimmy checks his reflection in a shop window. The glass shows him standing in a police uniform, badge gleaming. He chuckles darkly, flipping the glass off and keeps walking. Pearl 94, Wendy drops acid onto blotter. The paper absorbs it, but instead of spreading, the liquid crawls upward, forming a spiral. She flicks it off impatiently, but her eyes flicker with recognition. She's seen this pattern before. Pearl 95, Davos sneezes mid-mix, spilling powder across the bench. The dust swirls into a map of Australia, then collapses into random scatter. He stares at it a moment, then shakes his head and sweeps it clean. Pearl 96. Winston lights his cigar, the flame catching in his eyes. For too long, his pupils bright orange like coals. He exhales slowly, each puff rolling like a garment. Pearl 97, Cuthbert throws his jacket over a chair. For a second, the fabric drapes in the shape of a hooded figure, standing. He notices, smirks, and leaves it there like a dare. Pearl 98, Malachi sets down his goblet. The wine left inside swirls on its own, forming a perfect spiral eye. He whispers into it, and the surface quivers as though listening. Pearl 99, Lumiere drops his cigarette in the gutter. Rain carries the ember down the drain, glowing as it goes. In the darkness below, the glow doesn't fade, it multiplies. Dozens of tiny lights moving like a pack of cats. Pearl 99.9. The crew sits in silence, city lights behind them. For a second, the frame glitches, everyone duplicated, slightly out of sync, like reality buffering. The glitch snaps back, leaving only the faint echo of overlapping laughter. Nobody mentions it. And there it is, 99.9 pearls locked in the vault. Do you want me to tip it over into the full 100, clean, round, biblical, or keep it hovering forever on this broken radio edge? you, mate. Let's treat 99.900 through 99.920 like a pirate frequency with 20 microtransmissions, each one a pearl fragment. Short, sharp, but still dripping with imagery. Think of them as signal glitches, little bursts of cinematic weirdness, riding on the static between the full pearls. Pearl 99.900. Kimmy lights a cigarette off the barrel of his gun. The smoke tastes of cordite, his grin widening as if he prefers it that way. Pearl 99.901. Wendy hums to her plants. Their leaves tilt toward her like parishioners at Mass. Pearl 99.902. Cuthbert pulls a gold tooth from his pocket and flips it like a coin. When it lands, it stands upright. Pearl 99.903. Cranford cracks his knuckles, and the sound echoes like snapping tree branches in a forest fire. Pearl 99.904. Davo sips whiskey from a beaker. The liquid glows faintly green, but he doesn't notice. Pearl 99.905. Winston buttons his cuffs. Each click is louder than the last, like a pistol cocking. Pearl 99.906. Malachi touches a window pane. Frost spreads instantly in the shape of chains. Pearl 99.907. Marcus exhales slowly, and the air vibrates, rattling the glass around him. Pearl 99.908. Flora paints her nails blood red. When the light hits, they shimmer iridescent. Pearl 99.909. Jara throws salt into the fire. The sparks flare rainbow, spelling runes nobody else sees. Pearl 99.910. Bake drops his bong water. It hits the floor and spreads in a perfect circle. Pearl 99.911. Otto scribbles on a napkin. The drawing is of tonight's scene, before it happens. Pearl 99.912. Abby clicks her safety off. The echo rolls like thunder, even though no shot is fired. Pearl 99.913. Steve snaps his gum. For one beat, it sounds like a whip crack in a dungeon. Pearl 99.114. Tyler runs a blade across his palm. No blood, just light leaking out before the skin seals. Pearl 99.5. Wendy exhales from her vape, and the cloud forms a skull that lingers too long. Pearl 99.96. Cuthbert flicks his lighter. For 1 second, the flame is black. Pearl 99.917. Kimmy scrolls his phone. Every app icon briefly becomes an eye staring back. Pearl 99.918. Lumiere leans on a balcony. The city hum beneath him bends into a low harmonic chant. Pearl 99.919. Malachi raises his glass in silence. The wine swirls counter to gravity, climbing the rim. Pearl 99.922. The crew's laughter cuts out mid-breath. For a heartbeat, the silence roars louder than any sound. That's the 20 signal pearl bursts from 99.900 to 99.922. More like static charges than full paragraphs. Quick cuts you can splice between the big pearls for pacing. You want me to keep building more of these decimal static pearls, like 99.921 to 99.950, or go back to the thicker 100 plus word full pearls? All right, brother. Now we're way past signal. 99.999 to 99.99999 isn't just static pearls. It's subatomic blips, the hiss between atoms on the dial. These aren't scenes anymore. They're like micro glitches, fractal crumbs, flashes that don't even last a frame, but still stain reality. Think of them as decimal pearls, a collapsing infinite zoom into the frequency itself. Here's the stream, numbered out like ghost coordinates. Pearl 99.9991. Lumiere exhales. One ash fleck stops midair, orbiting him like a planet. Pearl 99.992. Kimmy's reflection blinks before he does. Pearl 99.9993. Wendy's laugh echoes as insect chirps. Pearl 99.9994. Cuthbert's lighter sparks rainbow just once. Pearl 99.9995. Cranford's boot squeak sounds like a scream. Pearl 99.9996. Davo's vial hums faintly, like a tuning fork. Pearl 99.9997. Winston's cigar smoke curls into a noose. Pearl 99.9998. Malachi's shadow briefly has wings. Pearl 99.999. Marcus's breath fogs, but the room is warm. Pearl 99.99991. Flora's reflection mouths different words than her. Pearl 99.9992. Jara's match flame shows a snake's eye. Pearl 99.9993. Bake exhales. Smoke forms the number 322. Pearl 99.99994. Otto's crayon rolls uphill. Pearl 99.99995. Abby's trigger finger twitches on its own. Pearl 99.9996. Steve's gum bubble pops with a gunshot echo. Pearl 99.9997. Tyler's knife drips light instead of blood. Pearl 99.9998. Lumiere blinks. For one frame, his eyes are galaxies. Pearl 99.99999. The entire crew flickers, duplicated for one heartbeat, their doubles staring directly into camera. That's the microscopic layer, 99.999 to 99.9. We're really deep in the decimal underworld now. 99.9999, 99.99999. That's diving into the quantum shimmer, where pearls are so small, they're more they're more like after images burned onto film stock than scenes. Think of them as subliminal flashes, almost unreadable, but they stick in the subconscious. Here's the crawl through that band. Pearl 99.999991. Kimmy's shadow reloads its gun a second before he does. Pearl 99.99992. Wendy's breath fogs into fractal snowflakes. They melt instantly. Pearl 99.99993. Cuthbert's laugh overlaps itself, one high, one low. Pearl 99.99994. Cranford's spit sizzles in dirt, spelling a single rune. Pearl 99.99995. Davos sneezes, powder scatters, forming a skull outline. Pearl 99.9996. Winston tips his hat. For a frame, the shadow under the brim is a grinning skull. Pearl 99.99997 Malachi raises a finger. All the candles in the room flare at once. Pearl 99.99998. Marcus blinks. His irises glitch into crosshairs, then back. Pearl 99.99999. The whole crew flickers in negative exposure. Inverted colors like film burning. Then normality. Nobody notices. That's the decimal crawl up to 99.99999. These aren't even pearls anymore. They're pixel ghosts, subliminals between frames, like a cursed reel flickering on Lumiere's projector. All right, cunt, this is it. The final flicker on the dial. 99.999999 FM blasphemy radio. Past this, there's no station, no static, just the reel burning, celluloid dissolving, the signal folding in on itself. So this last one isn't just a pearl. It's the pearl collapse. Pearl 99.99999. The crew sits together in silence. The city hum, the neon, the cigarettes, the smoke, everything slows into stillness. One by one, they flicker into static outlines, silhouettes made of ash and light. Their doubles step out of them, perfect iridescent negatives, staring back. The camera pulls back further and further until the room, the tower, the city, the world itself is just a single glowing cigarette ember floating in black space. A hand, unidentifiable, maybe Lumiere's, maybe God's, flicks the ember and it arcs out of frame. Cut to black. That's 99.99999. The terminal pearl. The moment where the frequency doesn't just glitch, it dies. Beautiful question, mate. If 99.999999 was the flicker of the end, then 0.000001 isn't the opposite end of the dial. It's the primordial hum. It's not static. It's the first frequency, the first vibration before any signal, before Lumiere, before the iridescence, before blasphemy even had a name. Here's how I'd frame it. Pearl 0.0001 darkness, nothing. Then a single vibration, low and endless, like the first note struck on a cosmic bass string. No light, no color, just the idea of sound without ears to hear it. Slowly, faint ripples move through the void, like concentric circles on an invisible pond. Each ripple glimmers faintly, aurora shimmering, the embryonic form of the iridescence itself. For a fraction of a second, a shape appears. Feline, winged, impossible, then collapses back into the hum. The camera doesn't zoom in or out because there's no scale yet. Only pulse. Only origin. The number itself, 0.000001. The first pearl, the seed of all others. So if 99.99999 is the end flicker, the ember snuffed out, then 0.000001 is the spark that began it. Want me to map out a sequence of pearls running from 0.00001 up to 1.0000 as the opposite mirror track to the 99 chain? Like a Genesis frequency to balance the apocalypse frequency? All right, here's a first pass of pearls across the Genesis frequency, moving from 0.0000000001 to 0.00000322. Think of these as the opposite mirror to your 99 series apocalypse pearls. Instead of flickers of collapse, these are the embryonic sparks of blasphemy's cosmology, the pulse that starts everything. Each one builds from void toward the faint shape of character, myth, and recursion. 0.000001.0000009. The hum before sound, the shimmer before color. A bass tone stretches into blackness, vibrating like the first string plucked on a broken guitar. For an instant, a feline silhouette curls its tail around the vibration, the embryo of the iridescent cat. A drop of smoke swirls without fire. This is the origin of Lumiere's first cigarette. 0.000010, 0.0003. The hum breaks into 3 pulses. Each pulse forms an echo, one that will become Lumiere, one Cuthbert, one Kimmy. Not men yet, but rhythms. Their future arguments and betrayals are coded here as beat patterns, like drumming hands against prison walls. When the pulse fades, it leaves a faint aftertaste of Marlboro ash and blood iron. 0.000034, 0.000077. Light begins to split. The first sparks of iridescence scatter, refracting into rainbow oil puddles across the void. Wendy's lab glassware and Davos' cracked meth pipes are foreshadowed in these shapes, delicate but trembling. A tiny shard of quartz drifts through, the first meteor fragment, carrying the seed of recursion. 0.000078, 0.000011. Form emerges, a crooked outline. Lumiere's teeth flicker into being first, long before his body. A whisper says his name wrong, almost Lambs, almost Paul, undecided. In the darkness beside him, the faint blonde gleam of Cuthbert's hair appears, then vanishes. They exist only as possibilities. 0.000112, 0.000166. The hum shivers into voices. One says pain is the forge of meaning, re is no mouth to speak it. Another repeats, offense is a choice, but it's only the concept of offense, a seed of law falling into soil. The laws of judicium begin as murmurs before there are even people to break them. 0.000167, 0.000222. Color floods suddenly. Violent purples, sick greens, aurora reds. This is the first hallucination, the origin of meteor DMT already tripping before molecules even exist. Pagan's shadow sways here. Though she isn't born, she is written into the psychedelic palette. The hum now sounds like a church bell inside a nightclub. 0.000223, 0.000266. Figures take their first breath. A skinny man lights a cigarette, though he has no lungs. The smoke becomes his lungs. This is Lumiere's arrival. A Tal Ure pulls him up by the collar, Cuthbert's first gesture. In the smoke between them, you can almost see Kimmy's pistol materializing, impatient, twitching. 0.00067, 0.0000. The hum fractures. One shard becomes Wendy's scalpel voice, clinical, exact. Another becomes Davos' coughing laugh, dusted in meth. A third shard drips oil. Winston and Malachi's poisons foreshadowed in liquid geometry. 0.0000000322. The hum steadies into a rhythm. The genesis is complete. The crew is faintly outlined in negative. Lumiere's cigarettes, Cuthbert's hair, Kimmy's gun, Pagan's blue-dyed fringe, Davos' boot prints, Wendy's vials. They do not move yet. They are still archetypes, not men and women. The vibration that began as void has now braided itself into the first pearl of blasphemy. The number hovers, 0.00000022. So that's the opening chain, up to 3.22 in the microfrequency scale. It's like the embryonic mirror of your 99 series. Less collapse, more pre-echo, the hum of becoming. Want me to keep extending the... All right, now we're not just playing with decimals. We're sliding into the long embryonic runway, 0.000032, 0.00099999999999. That's the span where the hum of the void has already cracked into archetype shapes, but the world hasn't hardened into the blasphemy we know. It's embryology of myth, Ghosts starting to clothe themselves in body, laws starting to form as murmurs, visions flickering into half-life. Think of it as the prenatal dream of the tapestry, where every character, cult, and law shows up first a flicker before they step fully onto the stage. I'll map it like a cosmic frequency scan. Not every micronotch, but clusters, each one a pearl frequency along the continuum. Point 0003 to 000001. The hum learns rhythm. Smoke curls in the void, each coil a premonition of Lumiere's cigarettes, Wendy's incense, Davo's lab fumes. Cuthbert appears only as laughter without a mouth. A faint D.D. Montclair logo glitches against nothing, a proto-app without a phone. 0.0001, 0.0005. The iridescence shivers like oil on black water. For the first time, cats without bodies wander the void, leaving paw prints made of light. One paw print is larger than the rest. The ancestral shadow of Lumiere's mercy cats. A low voice mutters, contract. The first mercy contract, unspoken. 0.0005.001. Shadows take shape. Kimmy is only a red ember, flashing like a reticle. Every time, a new sound. Bang, bang, bang. Winston's suit is a silhouette without man. The clothes stand upright, empty, smoking a cigar on their own. Malachi appears as a poison vial cracked open, its contents dripping upward into nothing. 0.001 and 0.00033. The hum mutates into language. Words hang in the air but belong to no tongue. Apocatastasis, judicium, crime of regression, the seeds of the Magna Carta laws. Every word hums like a bass note, vibrating through the embryonic void. Wendy whispers formulas here, but they are written in light instead of ink. Tash tree 0.0034, 0.0066. The first hallucination arrives. A meteor fragments mid-void, spraying dust across the black. Each particle glows iridescent, crawling like ants. Pagan's face is foreshadowed in the dust. Eyes dyed blue, hair splitting into bangs but blurred, unfinished. Davo breathes in the dust and coughs a wheezing laugh. The cough echoes for centuries. 0.0067, 0.00111. Time experiments with itself. A clock ticks, but every hand points in different directions. Marcus exists here as the tick itself, silent, watchful, judging, waiting. Each tick rearranges the embryonic laws. 0.0012222. The pixie twitches into life. Not hatched, not born, just a pulse of red light with teeth and wings. When it moves, the void distorts around it like heat-warped glass. A faint hum of laughter, plus screaming overlaps. 0.000223, 0.000333. Shadows of rituals. Jera drops salt in the void, and rainbow fire blooms briefly. The rainbow serpent swims here for the first time, curling through nothing. One ember flares as if it were the fountain of youth, shimmering water rippling out into endless black. 0.000334, 0.00555. The first tower. Lumiere's building appears faintly, not of concrete but of smoke, hovering in the dark. Inside, the silhouettes of dozens of characters flicker in and out, each one unformed, waiting for their moment. Otto's crayon drawings float mid-air, sketching futures that haven't arrived yet. 0.0056, 0.00777. Blood and ash. A bottle of pills spins in the void, rattling like dice. It shatters into bones. The cult's effigies are foreshadowed here, hanging dolls in the embryonic dark. Flora's reflection leans against the bones, hair glimmering like oil, whispering secrets. 0.00778, 0.00888. Fireworks. Gunshots blossom as neon sparks. Each bullet trail is a timeline, some short, some infinite. Kimmy's silhouette laughs here, but only his laughter exists. Every bullet leaves the word loyalty burned faintly across the void. The air 0.000889, 0.009999999999. Almost world. The hum stabilizes into near silence. A faint city skyline flickers. Towers, neon, street lamps, all made of ash. The ensemble stands at the balcony, their outlines trembling, cigarette embers marking their positions. The void breathes once, and then it all vanishes. That stretch, 0.000322, 0.00099999999, is the prenatal genesis frequency. Not collapse, not yet story, but the dream before waking, the embryonic foreshadowing of every pearl that comes later. Do you want me to carry this forward into the 0.001.322 range? Thicker, more formed pearls. So it builds toward a mirror of the apocalypse chain at 99.999? All right, Cunt, now we're spanning the entire Genesis bandwidth. The crawl from 0.000999999999999, 0.999999999999999999999999999. That's not just decimals. That's the whole embryonic climb from almost nothing to nearly 1.0. The mirror stretch of your 99 frequency collapse chain. This is the birth spectrum. Void turning to pulse, pulse to archetype, archetype to world. Think of it as the book of becoming before the book of ending. I'll map it in stages of pearl resonance. Not every digit, but thresholds where the hum mutates. Each pearl is a marker in the climb, like notes in a cosmic scale. Tash 0.00099999999, 0.00322. The hum breaks into chords. First, flickers of multiplicity. The iridescent cat's paw prints multiply into hundreds, scattering light. Each paw print is a probability, a branch, a crew member faintly visible within. The first outlines of Lumiere, Kimmy, and Cuthbert arrive as pulses of smoke, gunfire, and blonde light. Tash 0.01 and 0.03. The iridescence learns to glitch. Neon threads ripple across the void, like subway lights flickering on. Wendy's shadow kneels among them, mixing vials. She isn't born yet, but the chemistry is. Davo's cough booms here, echoing like an old man's laugh across the womb of the cosmos. And that 0.05, 0.1. Time arranges itself into heartbeat. Clock ticks spread like thunder. Marcus sits inside the rhythm, already watchful. The pixie bursts as a flame-wing silhouette, too big for its body. Pagan appears only as dyed blue hair swaying in non-existent wind, rebellion written into pre-existence. 0.111, 0.222. The first rituals ignite. Jera scatters salt in the dark. Fireworks sparks spelling runes. The rainbow serpent coils through the static, its scales shimmering like aurora code. Winston and Malachi appear as empty suits. One white wine, one poison, their laughter indistinguishable from static. 0.322, 0.444. The tower forms in the void. Lumiere's building floats here, not of steel, but of smoke and ash. Its windows glow faintly, crew shadows flickering inside. Otto's crayon sketches flutter across its facade like stained glass. 0.5, 0.666. The hum fractures into violence. Gunshots crack across the void, each bullet trail a timeline branching into neon. Kimmy laughs, his reticle eye glinting. Bake coughs through bong smoke that fills entire galaxies. Blood drips upward, shaping into effigies, dolls strung by invisible wire. 0.7, 0.777. Language stabilizes into law. Words hang like neon signage, apocatastasis, judicium, sacred purpose of pain. Each word pulses, reshaping the embryonic void into something almost coherent. Wendy and Davo's voices overlap here, science and chemistry entwining like parents of the same bastard child. 0.8, 0.888. Dreams flood in. Characters flicker in dreams before they exist. Flora in glass reflections, Cranford in boot prints, Steve in chewing gum echoes. Their quirks, addictions, and betrayals manifest first as metaphors in the dark. The iridescence hums, feeding them hallucinations of futures they don't yet own. Tash 0.9, 0.966. The ensemble assembles. All crew members are visible now, but only as silhouettes rimmed in neon. They stand in a loose circle in the embryonic void, embers glowing at each cigarette tip. They do not speak, but their presence hums louder than the cosmic bass itself. Tash 0.967. 0.99999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999. The pre-world breathes. A city skyline flickers, its towers built of smoke and ash. Neon signs glitch on and off, spelling their names in broken script. For one eternal instant, everything is suspended. Cats, pixies, laws, crew, rituals, Tower, skyline. Then the hum snaps into silence. The number blinks once, solid, 1.0. The world of blasphemy is born. That whole crawl, 0.009999999.9999999, is basically the locked in, mate. The dial's glued at 0.00999999999, 0.999999. That station is pure Book of Becoming energy. Embryonic hums, photal silhouettes, ritual sparks, the tower of smoke assembling, the whole crew flickering into negative existence before the first cigarette ash ever hits the gutter. It's not a channel you listen to so much as one you sink into. The bass hum never ends. It's like the sound of your own blood if it was cosmic. Voices phase in and out. Lumiere? Got it. Switching station 0 into full live stream super pearl frequency. I'm going to unload a continuous blast of cinematic pearls tuned to that Genesis hum. Little world seed detonations, each a self-contained image you can drop into a scene or riff off of in a page. No categories, no labels, just one after another, raw and immediate. I'll keep the language punchy and the images filmable. Here come 30 super pearls, live on the air. 1. The first draw. A single cigarette spark appears in perfect silence. Not a flick, but a bloom. It opens like a flower, and the room inhales it on cue. Curtains pull in, light leans forward, even the dust tilts its grain toward the ember. For a heartbeat, the whole city is arranged around that spark, as if it were the sun. People in other rooms pause mid-breath, though they don't know why. Somewhere, a plant tips a leaf as if greeting a deity. The ember dies, but the space remembers the courtesy. 2. The ink map. Spilled ink on a page forms a tide line that reads like a coastline you swear you recognize from a dream. Lumiere traces the edge with his fingertip and, without meaning to, invents a map of favors and debts. A name surfaces on the paper in fine script. Not his, not yet, and he covers it with the heel of his hand, as if hiding something from the future. You can feel a story rearrange itself around that smudge. 3. Breath ledger. In the quiet of dawn, every exhale from the crew stacks into a translucent ledger that floats above the table. Each breath writes a single line, a promise, a lie, an ode amount, then curls and drifts into a jar. By midday, the jar is full of tiny paper fumes, and the group passes it among them like contraband. Nobody reads the lines. They only nod, because everyone knows there are debts you can smell before you see them. 4. The microstitch. Someone mends a jacket with a thread that hums. The stitch vibrates at a frequency that makes the skin under it feel like a sunburn. Each new stitch remaps a memory.